In this segment, I'd like to illustrate another capability of the structural adjustment rules. In particular, we're going to look at how to copy constituents. We're here at adverbs 1, 2, which produces John walked more quickly than Mary. Now let's suppose that in your target language, the equivalent is John walked more quickly than Mary walked. Let's say you need to specify that Mary is also walking. In TBTA semantic representations, we wouldn't allow something like John walked more quickly than Mary ran, or John walked more quickly than Mary swam. We wouldn't compare two events. We can do that in English, but in the semantic representations, we wouldn't allow something like that. So if you see a comparative construction like this one, you know it's John walked more quickly than Mary walked. So let's add a new structural adjustment rule. I'm going to add a new group. Let's call it comparative constructions. And I'll double click on that name, that group name. Now we're prompted to select a semantic category. As I mentioned earlier, we need to select the semantic category that is most responsible for triggering this rule. And in this case, it will be an adverb. So I'll select adverbs. And here's an empty structural adjustment rule. Now we need to build the input structure. We need to include all of the constituents that are relevant. So in this case, we need to include the verb phrase, because we're going to copy it, and we need to include this comparative adverb, and we need to include this noun phrase. So the order of these constituents, when we build these, I don't want an adjective phrase, I want an adverb phrase. When we build these input structures, the constituent order is never relevant. You can put the order any way that you want. It's easier if you could order the constituents the same way that you see them appearing in the semantic representations, just so that you can look at this rule and understand it more quickly. But again, if we had put the adverb phrase before the verb phrase, TBTA would have still found it, and the result would have been the same. But it's just easier if you build these structures using the same constituent order that you see in the semantic representations. Here we want to insert an adverb. We don't care which adverb. We're not going to select any particular adverb. It may be quickly or slowly or carefully or quietly. We want this rule to apply to all of those adverbs, so we won't select a particular adverb. Let's put in our embedded noun phrase and our embedded nominal. Okay, that's all that we need in the input structure. We do need to specify that this is a comparative adverb. The degree has to be comparative. Okay, that's all that we need in our input structure. Now let's go to the output structure. And let's begin by inserting a new subordinate clause around this noun phrase. We're going to build a subordinate clause here. And this noun phrase will be the agent. Let's make this column wider. Okay, relativize now. The rule that sets these grammatical relations for us has already been executed. It won't be executed again, so we need to specify that this is the subject of the subordinate clause. And let's also specify on this clause, this is a new type of clause. We want to enter a new type. Let's call it a comparative adverbial clause. So we go to our feature set. Clauses is the syntactic category that's already selected for us, and so is the type. So let's enter a new value, comparative adverbial clause. You can define any values here that are relevant for your language. Now we see that value is available. So we'll select comparative adverbial clause. This will be the subject. We need to copy this verb phrase. Now, again, we can copy it anywhere that we want inside this subordinate clause. Again, it's easier if you position these where you would normally expect to see the verb phrase, just so you can understand the rule more quickly. So I'm going to specify that it should be copied right here. But again, it's always your phrase structure rules that determine the final constituent order. So wherever you copied this verb phrase inside this embedded clause, that would be fine. We don't need to specify a topic. I'm just illustrating something. Let's call this build comparative adverbial clauses for all comparative adverbs. Okay. Now if we click the generate button, John walked quickly. Here's our comparative adverbial clause. If you look up at the top, the type has been set to comparative adverbial clause. Our verb phrase was inserted by the rule that we just wrote. We need to specify in our phrase structure rule for clauses where to position this adverb phrase. So let's go to phrase structure rules, clauses. We'll insert a new constituent. It will be an adverb phrase. We don't care about that. We don't need a name. There it is at the top. Let's position this. We'll position it towards the end. And now if we generate this verse, John walked. We need the English word more, but we're not going to concern ourselves with that in this particular segment. The point that we're making here is we've inserted this new subordinate clause. It has a type value of comparative adverbial clause, and we've copied this verb phrase from the main clause into this subordinate clause. And that concludes this segment.